Hi everyone, I'm Allie with PotomacBeads, and in this Better Beader episode, we are going to go over what is the difference between a reamer and a beading awl. These can be a little bit confusing, but I want to make sure that you're using the right tool for the job to get it completed rather than breaking a bead or having an issue. So I'm going to show you the difference between the two and cases when you would use one versus when you would use the other. So what is the beading awl versus a beading reamer? So I have a couple examples here, and I want to go into why you would use each and for which situation. So the first thing that I'm going to start with is just the Potomac Bead Beading Awl. Whether or not you get this in one of the starter kits that we have as far as tool kits, it is a beading awl. Why is it an awl versus a reamer? Let's get out the reamer and I'll show you the difference. So the beading awl, you can see right away, is going to go from a tinier point to the handled section. The tinier the point, the better it is for certain uses. In the picture of the packaging, you can see here that it's used for knotting. So if I'm using a beading awl, it's going to be used primarily for creating these knots. If I'm doing a necklace like a mala necklace, or I'm doing some sort of pearl knotting like the most recent opera necklace, that's where this beading awl is going to come in really, really handy. And if I'm doing a lot of knotting with it, I like this big, long piece of metal that's leading down to a finer tip. Versus this is a fine tip pearl reamer that you can see it looks more like a file, looks like a nail file. They have completely two different purposes. I am not going to be knotting pearls and using this bead reamer as a method to knot my pearls or with any sort of thread or fiber, because this section right here that's a little bit rough there, see, ouch, it's grabbing my fingers, it is basically a twisted file. What this is going to be used for is literally for filing or twisting. In our listing for the product online, we have it as the fine tip pearl reamer because it does go back and it doesn't have a great opening size hole. It doesn't get huge. You may find files or rounded files in your toolbox at home. Those will work as well, but they have a very different function. They're going to be used for opening up or reaming out or creating a bigger hole versus a beading awl that is generally used for knotting, getting knots out, or to help with some glass that may be stuck in beads. When it comes to that, I actually really like the Tulip Beading Awl. So the Tulip Beading Awl goes down to a nice fine point. However, it's too short for me when I do pearl knotting. It just doesn't get in and do exactly what I want to. Sometimes when you have a bead, usually multi-holed beads, you're going to have an instance where you get to a bead and you have, a bigger one here, you have a little bit of blockage in a hole. Most of the time, this blockage in the hole, whether or not it's a super duo, kind of common, or even a seed bead with a coating on it, usually the coating that is put or applied to the bead to make the color stay or the finish stay or make the color itself will have a little tiny bit inside, and you can usually just take this Tulip Beading Awl and just kind of poke that out. That is the handiest tool ever to have if you do a lot of bead weaving. This tip of this Tulip Awl stays really sharp and great, and basically can clear out some shrapnel too from some machines too. A lot of the check glass is tumbled, and sometimes little pieces of glass get stuck inside the hole of another bead, and it easily, you'll think, oh, I can't use this, but you really can. Just take that and it'll clear out the center of it. Versus something that is going to be twisted and basically filed to ream out the center. When I use a bead reamer, I want to be careful because I do not want to break the bead. So when am I going to use this bead reamer? Like I said, this is considered and called a pearl reamer, a fine tip pearl reamer, because it is fine tip and thin. And because pearls are porous and a natural made material, they're going to be less likely to break than, say, a bead. If I'm going in here and I'm twisting around and around and around and around and around, and that bead has a blockage, usually it's going to break with a reamer. When I would use a reamer is again with those natural gemstones. Still be careful. You can use it with wood beads and with clay beads. Anything glass, it's 50-50. Just be aware you can break the bead because you are taking metal and filing it down in the center on that glass. Metal and glass don't like to mix. Sometimes they will bust and break. The other time that you don't want to use, or that you can use this, is on metal itself. So if I have a metal bead, say I have a bead cap here that just needs opened up, or a wire guard rather, that just needs opened up a little bit more, I can take that reamer and twist, and generally speaking, it's not going to break down the metal enough that it's going to have an effect. So you have your beading awl, and you have your reamer. A lot of people will think these are interchangeable and say, oh, cool, I've got one of these. I'll knot some pearls with it because it looks like this other one. They're incredibly different. Just like your beading pliers, when you go in and you have a set of chain nose pliers. Chain nose pliers, same deal. This is going to be the same thing between a reamer and between an awl. You want to make sure that your chain nose pliers don't have those spikes inside of them or those ridges. Generally speaking, they're going to be in some wire pliers for home repairs. They have those because they're used for gripping. When you do jewelry making, you don't want those because it's going to mark up your item. So you're looking at this too. If you see any sort of markings on the end of your piece of metal here, you're not sure what you bought, you have it in your jewelry box, it came with a kit. If there is any sort of pattern to it, that's going to be a reamer. If it's nice and straight, that's going to be a beading awl. You want to make sure you are not doing any knotting with a reamer, because that is going to mess up, tear up, and affect the thread that you're using. Whether or not you're using dragon thread or silk cord, you want to make sure that you're not going in using a reamer for this. You want to make sure that you're using an awl. Whether or not you want to use a small awl or a longer awl, that is up to you and depends on your style and what you like. But the beading awls, so handy to have around, because like I said, they usually can push a little shrapnel from the tumbling machines out from beads. They're great for getting knots out of your thread, even if you're a bead weaver. And they are wonderful for getting those knots really tight and close. So just make sure and take some caution that if you're not sure what tool you have, if it has ridges in it, do not use it for pearl knotting. We just did that pearl knotting video for the opera necklace, so I want to make sure that you're using the correct tool when you're going in to do the design, and that you don't by accident take your thread and fray it or really put damage on it as well. So this is going to be the Bead Reamer, which has that filed edge, versus the beading awl, which does not have the filed edge. It is nice and smooth and tapered as it goes to the tip. So the Better Beader episodes really are designed to help make you a better beader. We want you to be able to know your craft, love the craft, explore it, and have the knowledge to do things properly. So if you've been wondering, can I use this to knot pearls, or should I use this one to knot pearls, or should I even use this one to knot pearls? Look at the different tools, make sure you know what they are, and if you have questions about other ones, make sure to drop it in the comments below and I can go over those in detail with you in other Better Beader episodes. If you haven't checked them out before, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything from us here at Potomac Beads. And if you want to see tutorials on how to do lots of different jewelry making supplies and tools and techniques, that subscription will get you really, really far. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully this episode helped to make you a better beader, and stay tuned for our next inspirational video.